everyone, welcome back to Films You Should Be Watching. Today we're going to discuss another director, Terry Gilliam. Terry Gilliam's done a lot of different projects. Today I am going to focus on 4 specific movies and then casually reference a 5th on the way out of this review. Let me start by saying I have a lot of movies. Don't believe me? Look. These are all of my regular movies here in alphabetical order with some older video games down at the bottom. While on the other side of the room, I have all of my Blu-rays, import DVDs, and television series on DVD. That's not to count the fact that my Netflix account is always active, sending me more and more movies through the mail. So when it comes to getting Blu-ray movies, I can't just afford to buy every DVD I have on Blu-ray. I mean, it would be astronomical. So what I do is I get the ones that are very visually interesting, where the visuals of the film comprise more than 50% of the total experience of the movie. Mirror Mask is one of these. And every Terry Gilliam film falls into this category. Especially the ones I'm going to discuss today. Visually, they are beyond belief. But these movies are bizarre. I mean, they are WTF cinema worthy. They are weird. I love them. They are brilliantly done. The visuals are stunning. But they are definitely not for the faint-hearted. This is about as far from mainstream as you can get. So I don't blame people for not being able to watch these. They are hard to get, but if you can get through the weirdness, they are totally worth it. We're going to start by discussing his trilogy of imagination, starting with Time Bandits. Time Bandits is the story of a bunch of dwarfs who steal a map from God and then have a young child join them, and they go on an adventure trying to keep this map out of the hands of the devil. It's insanely weird. And it took me a while to be able to watch this one. I had to watch the other ones before I fully understood how weird these films could get. But like the other films of Terry Gilliam, it is simply gorgeous. It is beautiful. These films, at the very least, fall into the same category I put Koyaanisqatsi in, which is, it's a great film to have playing in the background. Like if you were shooting a movie and you wanted something on the TV in the background but you couldn't hear it, you would want one of these films, or Koyaanisqatsi, just for the interesting visuals that would be going on in the background. The second film is probably one of my favorites. It is Brazil. Brazil is not available on Blu-ray, but man, I wish it was. Brazil, it follows a middle-aged man stuck in an overwhelming bureaucracy, dreaming of being free. And that's the majority of the film, is him subtly trying to fight against the system, but not really knowing who he is or what he's doing. He kind of gets swept along into this dramatic story. And again, the visuals, and I'm going to keep saying this because it's going to keep being true, are just astounding. Also, you get to see Bob Hoskins come in playing a plumber. And how often do you see that? Okay, that was a cheap shot. Next, I'd like to discuss my favorite Terry Gilliam film, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Now, this one is weird, like the other ones, but I think it's possibly the easiest to grasp. This film follows the adventures, the insane, absurd, impossible adventures of an old man. And it explores the line between reason and fantasy, between science and science fiction. It makes an interesting case for how fantasy is important. And the movie itself is the 3rd or 4th Baron Munchausen movie, and the movies have a very interesting history. They're German in origin, And when the Nazis came around, they made one of them as a propaganda piece. It's worth looking into. Just the history of the films is interesting. But this film, first of all, has a couple of Monty Python people in it, which is always nice. The acting is superb. Robin Williams has a little cameo, which is funny because he's not even listed in the credits. His agent said, "Don't even put this one on your resume." It's funny, it's fun, and again, the visuals, over-the-top grand. The fourth movie is The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Perhaps the most famous for being Heath Ledger's last movie. A lot of people didn't like that. A lot of people didn't like that this was the final film for Heath Ledger, because it was another one of these Terry Gilliam hard-to-understand movies. The plot is convoluted. That's not to say that it doesn't make any sense, it's just really hard to follow. Which is true, at least, of Time Bandits and Brazil, and is partially true of Baron Munchausen. And a man makes a deal with the devil. They try to see... They play a game of souls. Good and evil, and people's predilection towards good and evil. The devil obviously voting that people would go for immediate gratification. Dr. Parnassus saying that they would go for delayed gratification. And along this story, which it has moments of just straight-out normalness, and then he's got this Imaginarium, and when people go into the Imaginarium, that's when Terry Gilliam goes full-out visual ecstasy. That's when he creates these amazing, interesting-looking scenes. Heath Ledger died before the film was done being shot, and the movie has a great way of explaining this in the plot, but basically friends of Heath Ledger come in to play his part for the parts that weren't done. And it makes sense in the story, which is hard to say of a Terry Gilliam film. It makes sense. But, again, the visuals, wow! The last film I'd like to talk to you about, I don't have clips from for you, and I don't even have a movie poster for. It's called Lost in La Mancha, and it's a documentary. Oh god, boring documentary. This is a documentary of Terry Gilliam trying to make a Man of La Mancha movie. What he was going to do is take the Don Quixote legend, mix it with a Yankee in King Arthur's court, and make a movie about it. And he tried. He really tried. But apparently God said this movie was not meant to be made, because everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong at once. The weather, actors suffering injuries, military setting up a base and doing flyovers over the set. It's ridiculous how many things go wrong all at once, and the movie completely fails to get made. And the documentary follows that process of him trying to make this movie, and you see a couple hints of some of the visuals that would have been in the movie. And I have to say this. Watching Terry Gilliam fail to make a movie is still more interesting than a lot of the stuff that comes out of Hollywood these days. So, if you want something easily understandable, you can see Lost in La Mancha. It's a great documentary. A, it's about filmmaking, which I always have a soft spot for. B, it's comedic because everything goes wrong. You couldn't have scripted this better. And C, it's about Terry Gilliam, who got his start as doing the weird animations for Monty Python. So some of the visuals will look a little familiar to you just because of that. Go see these movies. If you're worried that they may be too weird for you, start with Baron Munchausen, because if you can't handle Baron Munchausen, you're really not going to be able to handle the rest. And it's called The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. It's this long, drawn-out title. But go and see The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, then try some Brazil, some Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, end with Time Bandits, and if you want to skip all of those altogether and just watch Lost in La Mancha, that's your business too. They are amazing looking films, and I've been playing that element up quite a bit. They're good movies. They're convoluted and sometimes hard to understand, but they are good. They play by their own logic, and they're good. The visuals are just by far the best part of it. It's what Terry Gilliam does best. So go see those, and I will see you next week.